Battling continues in Malta over roundabouts and eminent domain. The town needs a few slivers of property to make the roundabouts work. We're joined by our legal analyst, Paul Harding from Martin Harding Mazzotti. Hey, Paul.
Good morning, Chuck. How are you?
Doing good. I think every homeowner wonders, you know what, if they can just take slivers of property, can they take more? And under what conditions can the government just take your stuff?
You know, it's a complex body of law. It really is, and there's all sorts of little niches in it. But as a general proposition, the rule that they have, and unfortunately the rule just sounds so arbitrary, is that they have the ability if there's a substantial public need. So you read that and you say, well, Paul, that's not very helpful. How do we dissect that? And they really do it on a case-by-case analysis. You do have more protection, which is actually your domicile, your home, although on certain occasions you can lose that. But in terms of taking 20 feet from your property to extend the road, it's virtually at their discretion.
So now when it comes to what qualifies as public good or public need, they have to show that they're taking the land for a public good. Now, current public good or anticipated 20 years down the road public good?
Kelly, you always have a way of getting right to it because, one of the absolute trigger points here says, hey, we're expecting, some really good things here. We need to anticipate that from whether it's the roadways or whether we need to do a roundabout or whatever the case may be. No, if it's the same rule. It's just harder to prove, right? I mean, if the road has got 40,000 cars on it and we need to put that third lane in, it's really quantifiable. It's right there. That's the way it is. But when we're saying, well, we anticipate there'll be 40,000 cars in this area, in 9 years, well, show me how you pull that one together, And so it just becomes a proof issue, more difficult for the government to prove. And of course, probably the greatest hot button is when you're taking someone's property that they own, they've deeded it, they like it, and now the government's taking it. I mean, those meetings get hot and heavy.
Speaking to our legal analyst, Paul Harding from Martin Harding Mazzotti on 810 and 103.1 WGY. All right, so we heard like in the Malta case, I guess the town has come to terms with one of the 7 landowners, and they're negotiating with the other 6, I guess. What leverage does a homeowner have if they can, the town puts a price on the land, and is it take it or leave it, or how does that work?
Yeah, you can bring an independent analysis. You can have someone come in, an appraisal, come in and say, hey, this property has a greater value. But as a general proposition, the technique that the state uses is a very acceptable accounting method. So you might be able to move it 10 or 15%, but unless they completely miss the boat here, as a general proposition, you're just arguing, probably trying to raise it up a little bit, and that's where the negotiation kicks in. It tends to be a value, not are they going to win. But again, what's the strongest thing they can do is what they're doing, is get to the media, because at some point, if enough people get together and are outraged, they have backed off some eminent domain in less probably of a need situation. So getting the word out, and because again, you'll get people behind you, especially with today's media, in terms of social media.
Sure.
You'll get lots of people supporting you quickly.
Hey, real quickly, and I hope you can answer it quickly, the governor's opening up like the DMV records back 10 years so judges can really see what you're actually charged with rather than just parking on the pavement. I'm curious about the average Joe, the guy who occasionally gets a speeding ticket. Is this going to make judges less likely to plea down stuff?
Of course, when we had that case most recently, Dennis Drew, and
right.
We all read
that's
about
an extreme
that,
case, yeah.
Things were happening, and so I know that's been one of the cases that's been pushed in front of the governor in terms of making that change. To answer your question, sure. Now we look to see this was an 8-point speed. He's going 40 miles over speed limit, reduced down to what they call an 1110A or a 2-point non-speed. He's going to look at that and say, well, okay, we got that. We've had 3 of those. Well, the chance of getting that reduction is going to be severely reduced. But for the average guy, Chuck, I didn't get a chance to pull your driving abstract, but you may have had a ticket in the last 10 years.
I'm pretty good.
And maybe not, but if you get another one, okay, they'll look and see what it was, but it's not going to affect the disposition. They tend to be less negotiated, more standard.
All right, gotcha. Hey, Paul, thanks.
Okay, guys.
We'll talk to you soon. Our legal analyst, Paul Harding, 1-800-LAW-1010.